Good evening. This is Bilbo, your DM from the world of Hearthron, and I am going to go ahead and talk about how what you do as a DM when your players look down the rabbit hole when you don't expect them to be looking down the rabbit hole, and I will tell you what that means. With the recap of my game here from last Saturday. So we had an issue of the game not being recorded with volume. So, needless to say, I was um, speaking, but no one could hear, and hopefully this is all solved. And tomorrow, when this gets processed, there'll actually be volume. I hope I fixed the problem. I believe I fixed the problem, and I apologize for the people that might turn on my videos and then realize that there's no sound. And hopefully that is solved tonight. So I will go ahead and kind of talk about what I'm talking about with the little rabbit hole idea. So to recap my last game, so I just got some notes here that I kind of want to look at as I talk about this. And so it was, like I said, I really wish the session recorded. Just technical problem. Had two webcams trying to, have volume, and they just canceled each other out. So that was the problem. Took me 3 days to discover the problem, but I think it's solved now. So, the game was so good. There was a role playing that was going on, and then just the storylines, the two story arcs, now have the group really thinking, what do they do? And I had two players talking on the phone until 2 a.m. that night after we stopped playing at 6 p.m. That's when you know as a DM you got them. You got your players hooked, and they are ready to go. So to recap the Terin campaign, the group returned to Sunderhold, the Dwarven city, after dealing with the Cyclops brothers and their run into an orc scouting party. They'd captured a couple of orcs, but the orcs didn't have that much information, so the group let them go back into the mountains, which kind of surprised me, but it doesn't and it does. A lot of times, players are just, they're bloodthirsty, and they kill. They get information from an enemy and they slay them instead of letting them go. And here they let them go, and this won't come back and bite them. Like sometimes you may let an enemy go and it comes back and bites you. That won't be the case here. So upon arriving to Sunderhold, there was an issue at the dwarves, the dwarven gates, the towers that go into this hold. They won't let these human berserkers pass into Sunderhold. And they were part of the Cyclops group, and the Cyclops leader Powell made a deal with the group to have 5 of these berserkers, these warriors, travel with the group and aid them with fighting the orcs. In return, they're going to get some armor, some better armor, better weapons, and who knows what else will come of it. We'll see how things go. And so half the group stayed back. And so this is one of those things where you have realism and fantasy, and sometimes it gets blinded because of, just some of the stuff we deal with in real life. And so these berserkers, there's prejudice, there's prejudice against these berserkers. The dwarves aren't going to let them through. And so half the group was kind of upset, and they're like, well, I'm not going to go into Sunderhold because, the berserkers can't. And so needless to say, half the group goes in, half stays out for the evening. And of course, that will change as the story goes. So In Sunderhold, the next morning, Dominic has a visitor come to his door. And Dominic's a brand new character to the group. He hasn't even been with the group for 72 hours yet. And this visitor is a young man named Terin that was part of Dominic's group from Mandai, which is another continent in my world. And Dominic is here setting up trade with the dwarves to deal with the dwarves with tobacco, of all things. There's a rare tobacco. It's only grown in Mandai. And so that's kind of how, some of his background, the character's background is that. And so this young man's there and says, to Dominic, our caravan was ambushed. We left Sundance Tower a day ago. After a day of travel from the Sundance Tower, on our way back here to Sunderhold with our caravan, we're ambushed by orcs and ogres. And he goes through this great description of what, attacked them, and their whole party was being killed. And some of them, including Terin, tried to get on horses and rode off. And only with Terin looking back, he saw Gestel, which is Dominic's lifelong friend and the best fighter in his whole group. And he's fighting off the orcs, telling his men to flee. And the other men are shot down that are riding horses. Only Terin escapes. And Gestel he's not sure. Terril's not sure if Gestel is captured by the orcs or cut down by the orcs. He just saw them fighting orcs as he's leaving. So, lo and behold, the group inside this, finally, reason comes to the other players, and they're like, okay, we need to go in and talk more about what's going on. And so now the group all came into Sunderhold, leaving the berserkers outside, finally. Fantasy kicks in. The storyline kicks in. So now what surprised me here is now the mages in the group decide they got a little worried about their other allies they've made in the West. Now these orcs aren't threatening the West. They're threatening the South. And whereas Sunderhold, these orcs are really, threatening Sunderhold. But for whatever reason, they got into it that they got the idea that, the towers could be being raided. The other towers to the west could be being raided by orcs. And they also talked about the towers to the east, too. But they have better contacts with the western towers. That's where the group has spent the majority of their traveling, is to the west, and built allies. So they start doing sendings, and so now I drop the hammer. So they look down the rabbit hole, and what do I mean by looking down the rabbit hole? Is that so I have this story arc complete with the orcs. Grimnox are going after Grimnox, this orc warlord that's building up a nation of orcs to go after Sunderhold. And I have them hooked. The king of Sunderhold is going to boon each of the members of the group certain magic items that the dwarves have, for dealing with Grimnox, taking him out, And so I have them hooked. So I'm like, this is what they're going to do. I don't have to worry about it. The adventures are all set. Each little mission, I have it all set. It's all written down, all ready to go. Needless to say, I'm making my second story arc. And some stuff that's going on, guess where? In the western region of Anlin. So, they check in with these towers. They check in with Dragontooth Tower first. Nothing. They don't get any response. They check in with the Pell Tower. No response. They check in with Benfer's gambling casino, which is ran by Clerics of Tribella, my god of luck. Kind of funny with that. And nothing. So then they start doing some scrying, and then they start sending messages to the other towers, making sure they're okay, and they all seem to be fine. And But the necromancer in the group, the wizard necromancer in the group, Cass, he scries using the dwarves' crystal ball that they have in a room, and he scans in on Dragon Tooth Tower and sees ghouls and ghast up in the battlements and a large army, maybe 1,000 undead, just standing there waiting, zombies and skeletons just motionless. There's undead horses, skeletal horses, zombie horses with riders on top of them. A variety of humanoids that are all undead, just waiting for orders. And I have them hooked on another adventure. Now, could I have saved this, after Grimnox? I could have just let those places, oh yeah, everything's fine, everything's hunky-dory. I could have, but I was already building this arc, and I already had these things set in motion. Now, sidetracks the group a little bit. The sidetracks this group, this session, big time. But it's great role playing. I mean, so first you have Dominic there, who's just been in the group less than 72 hours, and he's pleading with the group to go save his man, who doesn't even know if he's alive at this time. And later on, they do find out he's alive through some sending spells. So we got that. You have Vega in the group that wants to help the other towers evacuate, Kane Tower and the Starkin Tower evacuate, get them either back to Anlin when they get on boats in Anlin and get out of there, and to have Kane Tower reinforce Sunter Hold with the dwarves against the orcs. So they have that. They're getting messages to some other characters that are not in play right now in Anlin, trying to, do they need to evacuate the city? What's going on? So all that's going on. It's chaos. But it's great chaos. It's really great storytelling. I really wish this would have recorded. Needless to say, at the end, I believe they've decided they're going to go and what they're calling the mission, Saving Private Justel. They're going to go save a guy they don't know except for one party member who just joined the group 72 hours ago. And they're going to hope that he's still alive and that maybe they can get some more information about the orcs and Grimnox, because right now the group has no idea where Grimnox and this army of orcs is at. The other towers, the Kane Tower and the Starkin Tower, that are to the east, haven't been attacked by orcs, and they haven't seen any orcs. But the other thing too is really now I've built a sense of urgency with the group. Now they have to get this mission done so that they can go deal with this undead. And then still, there's still that factor too. The undead is like, well, Cass, who's a necromancer, kind of just like in awe of this undead army, but they don't know anything about it. Who controls this undead army? Where did this undead army appear from? So this Saturday should be a great session, and they'll find out some more about this undead army as we play out. They get some more information from some other powers that will be that can get them information. So we'll see how it goes. But it was a great session. Looking forward to it. And as a DM, don't be scared to let the players look down the rabbit hole. They're just looking. It could change, reroute your game. But if you're running an open game where you let your players kind of make their choices, let them make their choices. If the group decide we're going to go chase the undead, I'm going to go let them chase the undead. And I would just put the orc commission to the side, or the outcome too. You never know. If they go ahead and abandon the dwarves on this. It very well could be that they could come back and there is no Sunderhold. It's now Grimnock's Hold, or whatever I would choose to call it, after Grimnock's would take it over. So, their lack of doing something or maybe doing something is always scalable in my world. I mean, what the outcome of my players do affect, they have an outcome. That was what my players do as an outcome on the story, of course. But they could have went chasing after undead if they wanted to. But you never know. Those undead could be so powerful that they could kill these characters at this time. Hence, that's why I wanted it to be the second story arc next after Grimnock's. So with that, DM tips from Bilbo, World of Hearthron. We will check in with you next week. I'll probably try to do a video on Monday recapping my game. On Saturday with Terin. We're taking a 2-week break from the Ganor Empire as my son is up in Canada with fall football practice camp, and so he's a little busy. And his character is the main focal point on the next adventure in the Ganor Empire. So Sundays I'm actually getting to play one of my favorite characters, Fornar, a ranger Northman, actually. And their whole tribe is touched by magic, so he's also a sorcerer. It's actually have a triple class character. I would never do that in 5e now, but in 3.5, which that's what this is in, I have a couple levels warrior, one level ranger, and now he's a 4th level sorcerer. So yeah, it's a pretty cool character, one of my favorite characters, trying to lead the group out of death's door. So with that, have a great evening, and remember, it's cool to be a geek.